Alright guys, today we'll watch this video by ODale Studios. We're gonna see the most advanced horror game monster. So it should be a pretty good anime AI and procedural animated inverse kinematics for the monster. So let's see the video.
I decided to make the most advanced horror game monster ever. There's just one problem. I've never made AI before. I had always relied on AI.
Yeah, by the way, making an anime AI framework or an anime AI monster code is one of the most complicated part of game development in general, because anime behaviors take a lot of time to master, especially if you were aiming for AAA standardized anime AI. Even big companies like Ubisoft and multiple other companies really screw up anime AI in bigger productions with a very huge production team and a very huge budget, because it's one of the most complicated things in video game industry. Not just because of the difficulty curve that you should be considered and game design principles. We're gonna even talk about how limited animation could affect that, how procedural generation or procedural animation, could help with that a bit. The code itself could be very complicated because it needs to have both like things related to gameplay and different states for it to look alive. We need to, in a very advanced like anime AI, we need to group tactics, states and codes. You need to optimize it well, because a not optimized anime AI, especially for some types of video games that has a lot of enemies, could affect performance in a very huge way. We're talking even 60, 50 minus FPS if it was like optimized very in a worse way. So it's very complicated to make a very nice AAA industry standard anime AI for your video game.
Assets in the past. They all seemed overly complicated in the wrong ways. Not designed for the psychological horror monster I was
Of course, you need to every anime AI. I'm not talking about the frameworks, but every anime AI should be designed in a right way for its genre. An MMORPG anime AI should be different from an FPS anime AI for a game like Doom Eternal, for example, and should be different from a horror game anime AI. Especially for anime AIs in the horror industry, they need a specialized movement and specialized states to increase the psychological horror genre in the game.
I wanted something that would toy with the player, something that truly felt intelligent. But how do you build an AI like that? Where do I even start? To begin,
look at games like Alien. There's multiple games that had a very advanced, nice anime AI for horror games, and take notes from that. You might also want to take notes from Amnesia: The Bunker. It's one of the best horror games in my opinion. So you're gonna take notes from that on how to make the monster actually horrifying in game design ways. So there's multiple ways to do that. And again, one of the most hard things to code in video game industry.
I will study the smartest horror AIs ever made. I will learn why they are a success, and I will apply all of their strengths into my one. I asked myself, or rather I asked Google, what is the most advanced horror game ever made? The answers kept coming back to a game from 2014 called Alien Isolation. There's even
Alien Isolation had one of the most advanced and controversial anime AI ever designed in the gaming industry.
On how it was done so well. Lucky for me, that made learning it a lot easier. Basically how it works is it has two AI systems. The forefront, the monster itself, and in the background, the director. The director guides the monster or the alien to the location that the player's in, but it doesn't tell them exactly where they are. It is still up to the AI alien to find you. This makes sure there's no dull moments, and it keeps the stress high, but then it relieves it, which brings me to my next feature. It has a fear meter, and the player can't see it. If the monster stays close to you for too long, the fear meter maxes out, and the director sends the AI to another location. When the fear meter goes back down to 0, it takes the AI and it pushes them gently in your direction. This keeps the player from becoming too stressed out, which, believe it or not,
which would break the psychological horror vibes inside the game, because one of the worst things ever is the first encounter with the monster with the players in horror game breaks the horror from the game, so he is not anymore scared of the monster. So you want to keep a very fine line from disclosing the monster at first in the game and playing more on the psychological genre of it. So it's a very fine line. Many people do it wrong, even big companies. It's a very hard to do game design principle.
Not is still
Also, I
important.
want it not to be just a walking simulator for half the game, so you need to also put a nice gameplay in it with a nice jump scares. So it's a very hard thing to do. Like, think for this as an example of a horror video game. Like, you gonna hide somewhere and the monster, whatever it was, gonna put an axe in there's a multiple objects, like for example to hide in like a lockers, and there's multiple scattered lockers in an area. If you made the enemy AI just bunch with the axe or attack with the axe a random locker, and it's not really close to the player gonna feel not much scared anymore. If he instantly finds the player gonna jump scare for the first 2-3 times, and then he will get bored of it. So that's where the line is very difficult to put in game design principles. You need to really use advanced multiple techniques to put a very nice touch on the current situation of psychological horror games.
In a horror game. All of this was a huge inspiration to me. It helped me with my framework and getting the basics of the AI laid down. It also helped me understand how giving the player some peace from the monster made it more impactful when it came back. I also thought alien isolation
Whether
was
there's multiple ways to code it, that's something also like hard to decide. Like, do you do it in a behavior tree or state machine way? There's multiple things to do an AI framework for anime AI in it, so sometimes it get confusing even in coding matters.
a great example of how a single AI could be the focal point for an entire game. So let's get working on these aspects. To my surprise, programming the fear meter wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be, and the director about the same. Before I knew it, I had them both working with a little bit of testing. But that was just the beginning. I just started at this point, and I was unaware of just how truly much more work I had to do still. I was done with my research on alien isolation, and I turned my sights to a new game, or rather a old game called Outlast. Specifically the way they behave like real, living, somewhat intelligent psychopaths. By looking at the way they functioned, I created 7 basic states for my AI. Idle, patrolling, ambushing, chasing, taunting, searching, and best of all, killing. And within those states, mini states, these create unique experiences. This is what changed my basic AI into something new and exciting. Something I put
Like,
my
see,
own.
even simple things, simple visual things, like when his like transmitted through the wall, even some simple visual stuff like that could break out the horror experience for some players. So you need to make his leg like put it on the walls or stuff like that, just so it collides with it. So even simple stuff like visuals could break the psychological intensity of the game.
Spin on.
So you
Gave
can't
it
just like do a nice code only. You need to make it also visually appealing.
my own flair. Outlast was a perfect example on how to create a creepy human. But what makes a creepy monster? Something that shares no characteristics of humanity, something completely alien. I would have to ponder this to myself to create something unique. First, to understand what I liked, I had to figure out what I didn't like. Most indie horror game monsters run straight at you, including the ones I made, and had been done a million times. And I wanted my AI to be unpredictable and therefore feel more alive. So I began to think, what would a living, breathing hunter do? And not just a simple animalistic creature, but one with equal or greater intelligence to a human being. That's how I came up with mini states. You see, each state such as chasing, has many states within it that can randomly happen. Because of that random generation, it creates a new, unique experience every time you encounter the monster. So instead of just chasing you, the monster would appear to be hunting you. I want to tell you a little bit about what I came up with for these mini states. The first one, instead of sprinting straight at you in a straight line, the monster zigzags to either side, cutting off escape routes.
That would be better. Putting different chasing approaches like zigzag, circle around the player, or a bush in a straight line might make, and generating through them. Even you could, in some anime AI that I worked in, they put like characteristics for the a character for the anime AI. So some of the enemies are like have is very curious, looks around more. Some of them usually lead the group, they are leaders. Some of them are aggressive, some of them are relaxed and stuff like that. So there's like a drop down to choose from. So it's nice to have different characteristics for movements and behaviors in anime AI, because it means one framework and you can generate 100 of unique monsters in your video game, and the player won't get bored of them.
Giving you the feeling that it's trapping you or cornering. There are ants in my room. Ants. Or is it just the same ant appearing in multiple different areas? The next mechanic is taunt. Will stop mid-chase. Pictured in my head a terrifying alien being just watching you, observing. There's that ant again, crawling on my screen. But the next one I'm pretty proud of. It doesn't just follow you, it predicts where you're going to go. This was actually pretty
this is a nice thing to do, because if it just follow the player, escaping it would be way easier and way less scarier than if it really have a smart anime AI and it predicts that you are going in a straight line or gonna take a turn or stuff like that and behave according to this. This will make the player feel like it's a really smart enemy.
It was done by using physics to calculate your speed and
the
your
direction you are looking
and
at.
It would theorize.
Usually it's like, where are you looking at? What's the known are you looking at the enemy? So if he's looking backward at the enemy, we neglect that direction. If he looks away from the enemy, look where his camera is looking and where his speed is to the direction, and know what the exact possible position that the player gonna take. Is he gonna take a round or like a straightforward line, and calculate it, trying not each frame but try each like 10 frames or stuff like that, just for optimization, or use, there's multiple optimization technique to do this, and calculate his future thinkable position that the player might take, and according to that, especially if it was a closed area, the anime AI would appear so smarter than the normal just follow the player.
Where the player would be heading based on that plot. This will make the AI run where it thinks you'll go rather than where you are. No longer is it chasing you, but it's looking for a shortcut, and it always appears to be one step ahead. Think of a killer in a movie when it disappears and then reappears right in front of its victims. The last mechanic I call stalking. I had to cut because, well, yeah, it had some strange behavior. It's a shame. I think it was just a tad too complex for my current programming knowledge, but it basically would have worked where the monster could sneak
Sometimes
up on.
it's not about your knowledge in coding, sometimes it's just overcomplicating the system, which really breaks out multiple functionalities.
You by using cover. At this
Try
point,
to do the best thing that works with your gameplay, not the best thing that you could do and compete with even AAA companies, Ubisoft and multiple other companies are suffering with anime AI. It's not just you. As a solo dev, it's totally okay if your anime AI breaks there and here.
the monster was feeling more intelligent. The behavior and movement patterns were starting to feel like an advanced alien monster, but this was just one part of the puzzle. Without proper animations and sound effects, it was still a long ways from being finished. And that's when I remembered, oh no, I had done all of this, but I still didn't have a model for the monster itself. All I had was my lovely prototype spider, but I had an idea for the creature in my head since the very beginning. One inspired by Alien Romulus, Dead Space, and Sons of the Forest, and just spiders in general. Aside from never having programmed AI...
And because it's easier in procedural animation, it's very well known how to do a spider-like procedural animation, but not like a humanoid or stuff like that. It's a bit more complicated for different objects, but this looks like somewhat of a spider, so he would not waste a lot of time making like a procedural animation for it. So a nice choice.
I'd also almost never made a 3D model, and I wasn't going to start for now, and I had always heavily relied on the Unity store, but this time was going to be different. I wanted something unique for this game, something no one else had, so I did it. I took 100% of my first game's earnings, that's Habilis, a whopping $450, and hired a studio on Fiverr to make it. This was actually an incredible process that I've never done before. They were patient with me as we worked together to create something beautiful and disgusting. Look how this thing came out.
Yeah, that's a very nice match, to be honest.
Pleased. They did an amazing job, and I'm excited. Oh yeah, and I just need to animate it now. And they wanted more money for that. And the thing about money is I don't have any. Animating this thing myself was a nightmare. It has 8 legs, 4 arms, and a combined 70 different joints. But instead of manually animating the legs,
yeah, we're gonna use for limbs, multiple limbs. Usually we use procedural animation because it's way easier and way cost-effective for the animation team to work on.
I made them move procedurally, so they detect the ground and move automatically. There's that, yeah, I guess, so distracting. This took a huge chunk of the workout, and it actually looked really good. Then I created multiple unique animations for each state, as well as the mini states. I had them randomized so they didn't feel quite so generic, and this one in particular where he beckons you to come to him, it's just yikes. I am not getting in your van. With animations in the bag, it was time to move on to sounds. We were getting just a little bit closer to our goal of finishing this AI. Luckily, I've been making creepy monster noises since I was 11. No, I really mean it. When I was 19, I used to make...
Yeah, of course, you need to implement... Many people forget that, but when you do an anime AI, when you're done with your behavior trees and stuff, you need to implement a sound effect part for the framework to be used on, a particle system and effects part to be worked on in the future. You should not neglect the audio and visual side of it. You cannot just code it a square which is intelligent. You also need to implement visual features to it and make it as much scalable and customizable as possible, because you are going to reuse that. Believe me, you're gonna modify that, reuse that in your other game. So always make an anime AI scalable and reusable.
Monster shrieks on the way back to the refrigerator at my full-time job. I'm realizing I'm a strange person. So I had some first attempts at making the monster sounds. For this, you kind of just have to try something, put it in the game, and see how it feels. I ended up loving this clicking sound I started doing, as well as these sort of ghostly whisper, raspy whisper type thing. I was thinking all the while of this Half-Life 2 mod called Hidden, which many of you may not know about, but it had a sort of invisible monster that would jump up and climb onto a wall and say things like "Shit." So that was my inspiration. Also, I particularly liked the footsteps I made. I used my mouth for it. Mouth, you always were my greatest asset. Now the monster had a body, movement, sound, but it needed one final secret feature. I wanted the monster to be able to hear you. If you talk, if you cough, if you breathe, if you scream, it will come for you.
No, don't try to make the mic thing that usual video game do. Again, look at Amnesia the Bunker, how they did it. You have a light. If you want to see, you're going to make a noise. If you're going to make a noise, the monster is coming. If you don't want to put the light, you can turn on the generator, but you're going to be out of gas. If you're out of gas, the generator turns off inside your journey, and the monster comes to chase you. An interesting mechanic, working with the anime AI to enhance it and elevate it a little bit more. So you can't just make the mic thing that many people do. It's not gonna work with most players, and it's not the most fun experience. Again, always look for references in video games, especially horror video games. There are multiple very good examples for that.
Nevertheless, I thought implementing it would increase the immersion. Not only does it hear your mic, but it hears your footsteps. And don't shine your flashlight on it, because it'll really piss it off. Staying in well-lit areas will make it easier to be seen by the monster, so stick to the shadows and crouch whenever possible. At this point, my AI was more than just an enemy. It felt like a living thing. It was an alien creature with its own agenda. It knew how to hunt players and not just kill them, but make them their prey, toy with them like a cat and a mouse. I have to say I doubted myself at times, but I also believed I could do it. I believe from learning from every great AI and applying
Also, just a note, if you want really to improve the graphics in your video game, just add more props with more story in it, because there are not much of us like scattered props in the area that make it a bit feel more empty and less better in art direction. Also, a fog. I did not see a very clear fog in the game. Maybe make it or change it in a way that looks better.
Ideas. I think this is truly one of the most advanced and creepy monsters ever made. Oh, and by the way, I hid 5 keys for the game, this secret game, in this video.
So, an amazing video by ODale Studio. Definitely go and check out his channel. Thanks for watching and see you in the next episode.